Good afternoon and welcome to Cindy Maxwell-Ostdiek, legislative candidate for District 4. Thank you, Cindy, for joining us for our virtual legislative candidate meetings. My name is Gina Ragland, and joining me today are AARP lead advocacy volunteers Susan DeCamp, Janet Davis, and Mike Barwig. We also have the privilege to have with us today AARP Nebraska's state president, David Holmquist. Emily Wick is also joining from the AARP office to assist with some of the technical details. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be shared with AARP members across your district prior to the election. Cindy, we appreciate your taking the next 30 minutes of your time to meet and discuss issues of importance to the 50-plus voter and their families in your district and across Nebraska. As a brief background, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering and strengthening people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. As people live longer, healthier lives, we know we need to think differently about what it means to age. So with that, Cindy, if you want to start us off by giving us a little background about yourself and your campaign in about 5 minutes or less would be great. And then once we've completed your opening, we'll move into the questions. So welcome, Cindy.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today and talk with all of you. I am Cindy Maxwell-Ostdiek. I'm an independent, and I'm running for Nebraska Legislature in District 4, which is West Omaha. And I am someone who is actually from small town Iowa. I grew up in Harlan, Iowa, and went to school in Maryville, Missouri, and actually then came to Omaha as a young woman. And I've lived here ever since. I have a husband and kids. My three are in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. I'm here in Millard, so my children attend middle and high school here in Millard. And my husband and I have a business from our home. So I am at home with my husband. We're at work, and then I have a lot of volunteer and civic engagement responsibilities. I've been involved with quite a few organizations. And it's really something that I never thought I would do, was to run for office. Just honestly, it was something that I had not considered before, but my background's in recruiting, professional executive recruiting. And so I knew Senator Helkeman, who is our current senator, is term limited. And I tried to find someone to run for this position. I asked a few people actually who didn't say yes. And I had a few friends and a couple senators tell me to run. And I thought about it very long and hard as someone who's followed the legislature closely and been involved with helping my neighbors and everyday Nebraskans to involve themselves and take up their privilege and responsibility as members of the Second House. I really think that this is something that is important and wanted to make sure that I could focus on it. So I'm proud that I can. And I am wanting to make sure that I listen to everybody in my district and across the state. As an independent, I'm not focused on party politics at all. I want to focus on solutions. And that's part of the reason I'm running, as I'm a little frustrated at times that we're not able to move forward on some of these issues I see coming up in the legislature year after year. And I'm wanting us to move forward on some of these things. And some of the topics here regarding our AARP members and older Nebraskans are things that are just top of mind. So I don't know if that kind of answered your question.
Perfect, Cindy.
Yeah.
And a great background, great introduction. I appreciate knowing I don't know that we care that came from Iowa, but no. No,
Yeah.
Just kidding. No, in all seriousness, thank you again for the background. We appreciate where you're coming from on different issues, and certainly why you're running for legislature, I think, is the most important thing. So we have provided you with a set of 3 issues containing 4 questions pertaining to the 50-plus in Nebraska. And we have allotted 5 minutes for each of those questions, again, based on our time constraints. So our first question this afternoon will come from Susan DeCamp on health, caregiving, and home and community-based services. So go ahead, Susan.
Thanks, Gina. Good afternoon, Cindy. It's nice to have you here with us today. So home and community-based services, also known as HCBS, provides an array of services to help people with daily living activities, to promote independence and allow them to stay in and age in place in their own homes and communities, delaying that having to go into institutional care, which is much more expensive, and they'd rather be in their homes. Family caregivers also provide care for someone who is unable to live independently. And these caregivers are family members, friends, or even acquaintances who often provide this care without any pay. So we have found that telehealth services can be significant for seniors, particularly in the rural areas or underserved communities. And they can also provide support to the family caregivers by reducing travel, wait times, and costs associated with caregiving. So we have a couple of questions for you on that topic. The first question is, what will you do to support the 240,000 unpaid family caregivers in Nebraska through policies like enhanced respite services, access to telehealth, caregiver education and training, and out-of-pocket expenses for the caregivers? The second question is, what would you do to protect and or expand the home and community-based services program, particularly in the area of recruitment and retention of a sufficient workforce, and also adequate funding of those services that Nebraskans and their families rely on?
That's so much, and such big topics. And I'm going to say right away that there's a lot of areas that I will be learning as I'm entering the legislature as a new senator. And I'll be wanting to rely on the professionals and the data and talking with people, not only in my district, but across the state about how these issues are affecting our really growing number of older Nebraskans. I am, my family's in Omaha, obviously, but we have my husband's family in smaller town from Blue Hill, Nebraska, and in other cities and smaller towns across the state. And this is such an important topic. If I miss anything, I would invite anyone in District 4 to call me so that we could discuss it in more detail. I'm just going to say that right off the bat, because I'm afraid we won't get to all of it in these short minutes. But I would start at the beginning and say that it is a Nebraskan value and a value of all people of good conscience that we help our older Nebraskans and keep them with their dignity and preference when possible. And it's very hard to do that, especially if you're in a smaller town or if you live in, Omaha or Lincoln, and you might not have family close by. And even if family is available and certainly wants to help with some of these needs, they have work, they have kids, they have all these other responsibilities too. And so it is something that we as a community, I believe, should come together so that we can help with this. And as far as the ability to provide these community-based services, it is interconnected with other issues. And I'm going to talk about smaller towns kind of a lot right here. We're needing to get more businesses in these smaller towns so that we can attract employees and their families so that they could be there to impact these needs. When we're losing companies from these smaller towns, then we're also losing the potential employees. We have a shortage across our state, just an extreme shortage of people to fill all the available positions. And that is something that is interconnected with housing. It's interconnected with business and entrepreneurship. It's interconnected with the education system and the skills that people bring. And so I think we need to focus on this in a big picture way. And I'm wanting to just kind of stress that we can find answers to these things, but we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and get to work on it. And as the state legislature has debated some of these topics over the last few years, and I watch closely, I'm a co-founder of a study group where we focus on the legislature exclusively, and we also record the committee hearings and floor proceedings. I hear the senators talking about these issues, but we haven't actually solved some of the problems, and it's getting worse. I am someone who has experienced work at a assisted living facility here in Nebraska or in Omaha. It's called Newcastle Retirement Center. And there is an adult, it's called the Franciscan Adult Day Center. And it's a specific place amazing place where people can come during the day if they have, say Alzheimer's or other dementia or other needs, and their family members then would have that ability to go to work, or if they have other obligations, or sometimes to just take some time for themselves, because it is such a privilege to be there for our family members, but it's also a lot, and it can affect everyone's mental health and emotional well-being. And so I think that if we could help to create more openings like that in some of these other cities and smaller towns in Nebraska, that would be a good thing, because all of us could come together to serve our neighbors' needs. I didn't answer all the questions, but I think I'm out of time. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you did great. We appreciate hearing your perspective on that. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Perfect, Cindy. Thank you so much. Our second question now switches more to the institutional side of for seniors, and it's on nursing facility quality. And Janet Davis is going to take that. So go ahead, Janet.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to thank you, Cindy, for being with us today. I too am a part of that legislative study group, and it's very helpful in helping to keep us organized and informed. Question number 2. Just one moment, I lost my screen. There it is. Over 20,000 Nebraskans require care in nursing facilities or assisted living communities. Facilities have closed their doors, citing reimbursement challenges and staffing shortages. Nebraska will need an additional 4,700 more nursing assistants, LPNs, and RNs by 2028 to meet Nebraskans' care needs. Everyone, regardless of where they reside, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect and have access to quality medical care. Better staff to resident ratios improve the overall quality of care and well-being of residents. Workforce recruitment, retention, and job satisfaction challenges are prevalent across the long-term services and support industry. Causes of workforce challenges must be identified and implemented to respond to the growing need for high-quality care. And now to get to the actual question, what will you do to improve the quality of nursing facility care for Nebraska residents, including addressing the growing long-term care workforce crisis in the state, professional education and training, and accountable facility reimbursement?
And yes, all of those things are so important. And it's a lot of it still comes back to how in Nebraska, we need to attract and retain more people, more talented people, more passionate people to stay in our state. And it is something that is interconnected with education, with housing, with other amenities, in our state, about the culture and whether we're welcoming to people from all backgrounds, no matter, their whether someone is Black, Indigenous, another person of color from another country, or religion, disability, LGBTQ, all of these different kinds of issues are something that as a state, we need to make sure that we're welcoming. And one of the things regarding workforce is that I believe we could do more to incent people to take in some of these positions as an option. I think that a lot of people don't understand how they might be able to go back to school, say they're in a career that's not meeting their needs, or they feel like they want more challenge. How can we help people who are currently working to attend and get the necessary training so they could fill some of these positions? I think we need to think outside the box and be a little bit more flexible with some of that, and also offer incentives. It's difficult for people who are currently working and maybe even struggling to make ends meet, and then also take on education expenses too. So as a state, we need to think bigger and also invest in these types of solutions. Otherwise, we're just going to be behind the ball. And pay is very important too. And I know that there were adjustments to reimbursement rates and things like that, but they weren't, from what I understand, permanent or necessarily at the amounts that would meet the need long term. And I think that would be difficult for these nursing facilities or other organizations to do long-term strategic planning. And so I think that as a state, we need to understand that the number of people over a certain age that's growing in our state, and we need to invest in this long term and not penny wise, pound foolish. I think sometimes we need to understand that if the end in mind is the goal to take care of our neighbors, then we have to invest with what it takes to get it done. And I think most Nebraskans don't like to pay taxes. No one does. But if we're going to, we want to make sure that we're utilizing these dollars in the best way possible. And I think that one of the things we should be doing is investing in these areas. I might have missed some of it, and I think I'm out of time, but I'd be happy to discuss it in more detail if someone has more questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy. That was great. Our final question for discussion today centers around livable communities and helping people stay in their home. And Mike Barg is going to take that. So go ahead, Mike.
Good afternoon, Cindy. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
A livable community is safe and secure, offers affordable housing and transportation options that allow individuals to travel by multiple means, and provide supportive community features and services for people of all ages, allowing people to remain in their communities as they age. Affordable and reliable health care and transit options are critical to support older Nebraskans aging in place. High-speed internet should be affordable, reliable, and accessible for all Nebraskans. Digital skills development is also essential to obtaining the benefits of high-speed internet access in the home. So our question is, what will you do to ensure all Nebraskans, mainly those 50 years and older, have access to livable communities which offer affordable housing, diverse transportation options, adequate health care, and affordable, reliable, and accessible high-speed internet, including digital skills development?
So this question is just near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to start at the end first. We learned during the pandemic how important that connection is to our community and our services through the internet. And we've been talking in Nebraska for years about broadband, and it's something that I know with the recent infusion of federal dollars, we're hopefully going to be able to really make progress. And I hope we can do it quickly. It's important not just for people who are aging in their homes across the state. It's also important for the people who are in the community and working in those cities. And if we don't have the ability for people to have their company or their businesses to conduct over the internet, they can't stay there and they won't be able to maybe support the elderly who are living there. So this is just very important for our state. And we learned during the pandemic how important it is that people can access their health care through the internet and through telehealth. And I did telehealth here in my family, even though our doctor's just down the street. So it's really important when you're in rural areas. And as far as the transportation, I grew up in a small town, and my great-grandma lived with my grandma and grandpa, and they were only 2 blocks away from us. So I could just run over as a kid and go spend time with my grandparents, spend time with my great-grandmother. And she was like, I think 96 or something when she moved to the nursing home in Harlan, Iowa. And that was still only a few blocks away. I was a kid who could ride my bike and go to be with her. And I was very lucky, and I realized that we're missing that here now in this day and age. And so as far as transportation and community involvement, I know people want to stay in their homes as long as possible, or in some sort of assisted hybrid situation, or if people are in a nursing home. If the transportation is difficult and you don't have family that can come or visit or drive you to your appointments, then I think we need to be assisting our neighbors with this. I think it's one of our responsibilities in our society. I just think that this is something that we should be making sure to help our older neighbors so that they are able to have the healthcare and the community involvement that they need. We have so much to learn from our older neighbors, and I just feel like we're missing out right now with people just not being able to interact face to face as much as possible, or even over the internet. And as far as adult education, I think this is something that we should be doing, period. Yes, regarding technical skills for older people, but also even just regarding history and science. And there's a lot of myths and disinformation happening right now about a lot of topics, and it's affected a lot of older people who may not understand. We've had a family member who had kind of a taken in by spam type of situation. And I think it's important that we're helping everybody to continue their lifelong learning. And it's something that will benefit all of us when everybody is more informed. So I think I missed some on this question too. I apologize, but it is something that I think we really need to work on as a state. And as a legislator, I would be trying to really focus on some of these things. Lots of workers are really, they have their kids and they have their parents, and they're trying to balance taking care of their loved ones. And it is something that I think that is going to become even more important over the years. And I want to get in there, roll up my sleeves, and just try to get some solutions going.
Very good. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that very much. We're now coming to the end of our meeting time. And so I would like to offer back to you any closing thoughts or comments that you might have for members of AARP and that are constituents of your district. So we have about 5 minutes left, so go ahead.
Well, I know that when I have been thinking about AARP, and I don't know, Gina, if I was talking with you on the phone, I turned 55 this weekend. And I haven't joined AARP yet. I know that I received the cards a couple of years ago, and I was just like, I'm not ready for that. So I didn't understand all the benefits, and it is something that I'm going to definitely join, and I'm excited. I have really been pleased when I've been in Lincoln testifying at various committee hearings or watching the various bills that have been introduced. I appreciate that there are members from AARP and representatives that are actively trying to bring these priorities to the senators. I think it is very important, and I just want to say I appreciate that advocacy. And as a senator, I will be looking to experts for these types of issues. And I think we need to bring together stakeholders. We've talked about this today already. A lot of these issues are interconnected. And if we just keep trying to nibbling around the edges of some of these issues, we're missing the opportunity to actually kind of multiply these solutions. And I'm a growth-oriented person. I feel like we're leaving a lot on the table as far as how we could be serving struggling Nebraskans as well as older Nebraskans, and then companies that are trying to grow so that we can support everybody. Because if we don't have the economic base, then we're just going to continue to lose people from our state. I am someone who is excited about voting and excited that AARP helps encourage active participation of their members in making sure that they're registered, that they're, either vote by mail or go in person, but also long-term to be involved with the legislation process. And here in Senator Hoekman's district, he used to have monthly coffees on Saturday morning, and it stopped during COVID, unfortunately. I would, as a senator, continue that legacy and start doing that, trying to bring people together in the community. But I think that we should be also doing that at a statewide level too. and trying to really get more conversations going, because I think that a lot of our older Nebraskans will have good ideas. And if we could just bring people together, we would hopefully be able to actually move forward. Just so much division in Lincoln. It seemed like this last session had so many good bills that just didn't even make it to the floor, because there was just extreme partisanship, and some bills were like pulled out of committee and things where it just takes a lot of time from regular legislating. So I'm hoping this next session that we can focus more on solutions and get past all the rhetoric and the extreme division. As an independent, I would work with all the other senators, no matter their party. And I hope that we can, really get some good things done next year and the next years after that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Cindy. First and foremost, happy birthday to you this weekend. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, we'd love to have you as a member. And don't worry if you don't sign right up, we'll keep coming and offering that back. So as we're coming now to the end, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to visit with us. I know you're busy. We wish you the best with your campaign. And thank you so much again for meeting with AARP today. Take care.
Thank you.
Cindy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.